Kikuyus and Luos really loved one another. We used to have Kikuyus in Nyawita here. We used to have Kikuyus in Homa Bay. We used to have Kikuyus in Awasi. We used to have many of Kikuyus in Kisumu here doing business. But 1969, that is when the worst began, immediately after the death of Tom Mboya. Luos and Kikuyus were really working together. Luos and Kikuyus, they really loved one another. And that's why the Kikuyus, but in 1969, immediately after the death of Tom Mboya on the 5th of July, that's when the hatred between Luos and Kikuyus. In fact, when Jomo Kenyatta came in 1969 in October, that's what prompted people to start abusing or saying, when they were saying Dume Dume, that was the sign of KPU. When they were saying Dume Dume Dume, they were saying, where's Tom Mboya? Where's Tom Mboya? So it is the death of Tom Mboya that brought hatred between Luos and Kikuyus. What did the Luos do after the death of Mboya? In Kisumu here, the Kikuyus we used to have many of them in Nyawita here. They are the ones who are running shops here, business here, in Nyawita here, in the town here. Many of them, some were killed, some were beaten. In Awasi, they were beaten. In Homa Bay, in Migori, in Migori, this thing happened. And it was repeated also in 2007. The same thing. We used to have a brother, a member of our Church of God of Prophecy in Migori called Mwangi. Mwangi was a very committed member of the Church of God of Prophecy. But in 2007, 2008, all these things go back to 1969. That's where the hatred started. But now, the 2007, I would say the 2007 enlightened or brought to the memory what happened in 1969. 2007, 2008 brought to our memory what happened in 1969. Because 2007 now, 2008, look at how Luos were killed in Naivasha. How the Mungiki killed the Luos there. And even the Kalenjins. And the same thing is likely. So the hatred between the Luos and the Kikuyus started in 1969.
And it went even bigger because anytime Raila was from the Luo community, Kikuyus always said that they can never vote for Raila.
In 1969, in October, the Kikuyus took an oath in Gatundu that leadership should not go out of the house of Mumbi. Martha Karua recently confirmed.
In 2022, it was Kalenjin versus Luo. But still, they voted the other side.
Yes, it was a Kalenjin versus a Luo.
Ruto versus Raila, which we expected that because Uhuru is supporting his brother Raila, we thought maybe Kikuyus, for the first time, they can bring their votes this side. But they ended up taking the other side.
It is the hatred that has started in 1969 between the Luos and the Kikuyus. The hatred that started between the Luos and the Kikuyus. Luos and the Kikuyus started very well. Before independence, and Luos and Kikuyus were working together. The Luos and the Kikuyus were the ones who built. Now, Moi, who took over from Kenyatta, was in Kadu. And Ronald Ngala and Masinde Muliro, most of the politicians from Western, even like the late Martin Shikuku, all these were in Kadu. And Kadu was working together with the colonialists. But the Luos and the Kikuyu, given that the Luos numbers were very high those years, and the Kalenjin number was very low that time, and the Kikuyu's number, this is how they won independence. But now, immediately after the death of Tom Mboya, that suspicion began. The suspicion between the Luos and the Kikuyus began there. And that same year, in 1969, I remember even some members of the Tukutendereza who were Kikuyus were killed, who refused to take the oath. And even some of them fled to Uganda in 1969 when they were taking the oath that the leadership is not going to go out of the house of Mumbi.